Yo guys, it's me, Charlie. Hey, did that guy just turn into sand?
Don't you love when your favorite musicians have like that, what do they call it? Aura? You know when you like an artist and they take a couple years in between each album release or single release and there's just like nothing, like they don't have a social media, no public appearances, stuff like that. One of my favorite bands ever are probably the kings of that. Well, two of my favorite bands actually, but we're talking about one today. 5 years ago, one of my favorite bands of all time dropped a video on YouTube. That was a big deal for me because if you were a fan of said band, you would know that they have been radio silent at that point for almost 9 years. Since their last album was released back when I was 14, it was a really big event for me. Imagine my shock when I go to their YouTube channel and I find that the video is titled Epilogue.
What do you mean by that?
Awesome!
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't pull the trigger.
Like, you know, the thing that comes once something is over. Essentially, it was a goodbye video meant to convey that they've decided to end this band. No! And the peculiar aspect of the announcement video was that the visuals that they used were recycled from a film that was directed almost 15 years prior to this video's release. That band was Daft Punk, and that film was Electroma. They gained popularity and maintained mainstream appeal throughout the late 90s, 2000s, and 2010s as they released their 4 studio albums. The albums named Homework, Discovery, Human After All, and Random Access Memories are all, in my opinion, fantastic bodies of work, each in their own individual ways. Depending on the day you ask me, I would consider any one of them my personal favorite.
Oh my god, bro, it's dick riding all you do?
Daft Punk are for sure some of my favorite musicians of all time, and a portion of their allure are their visuals, which is a recurring theme amongst a lot of my favorite musicians. The aspect that separates Daft Punk from the other artists is their commitment to the bit. Since nearly their inception, they've worn masks or helmets to disguise their faces. As time passed, their costumes and aesthetic evolved alongside their music. The one constant is the correlation between the robotic aesthetic with the music's robotic lyrics, as it also contrasts with the themes of humanity and romance.
I've been for some time looking for someone I need to know now. Please tell me who I am.
Songs like Digital Love, Emotion, Within, and Touch are perfect examples of this. This can be seen in their music video for Defunct, one of their first hit singles, where the main character of the music video longs for connection with an old neighbor of his, despite the fact he has an off-putting appearance, to say the least. The Prime Time of Your Life, which is a music video that gave me nightmares for weeks on end, where the main character struggles with self-love as body dysmorphia frames her perspective in an extremely haunting manner. Or Instant Crush, featuring Julian Casablancas, where 2 unmoving wax figures seemingly long for one another as they are separated and archived in a museum that eventually burns down from an accidental electrical fire, and in the process causes them to reunite apart and also tragically melt into one wax puddle. Now, majority of their studio album songs don't have music videos. However, their second album, Discovery, is a unique case. Every song on that album has a music video that is actually just pieces of a longer feature film named Interstellar 555, the story of the secret star system. The film serves as a companion piece to Discovery, and the story is that of an extraterrestrial synth pop band being abducted and exploited by Earth's music industry. The main themes of humanity, which I mentioned earlier, as well as its vulnerability when it comes to fame, as well as the power of love when its structure is challenged, provide an extra layer to Discovery and its lyrics. The film itself was received well by general audiences and even aired on Toonami back in the day. However, the same cannot be said about their subsequent film, Electroma. Electroma is a film about two robots named Hero Robot Number 1 and 2 respectively. On a trek through Eastern California in a town filled with other robot denizens, all the robots in the film also wear the real-life duo's helmets, and the denizens are all different ages, genders, and occupations in the town. The hero robots eventually drive to a facility that provides them with aesthetics and wigs that allow them to appear as human as possible, even though their helmets cause their faces to look cartoonishly bulbous and horrifying. The sun, however, eventually causes the prosthetics to melt off, which horrifies the denizens enough to chase after them and expel them from the town. The duo hide in a gas station bathroom, and within it, the gold robot removes the melted prosthetics swiftly off his face, but the chrome robot is reluctant.
All around me are familiar faces.
After the gold robot helps the chrome robot remove the prosthetics, they begin an extremely extensive walk across the Californian wild.
I put the new 4Gs on the G. I tap into the bloody bottoms is underneath. Cause all my niggas got it out the streets. I keep 100 racks inside my jeans. I remember hitting them all with the whole team. Nah, nigga, can't us.
The chrome robot, however, walks with his head down and slows his pace, but the gold robot continues with his head held high. Eventually, the chrome robot stops and communicates to the gold robot to activate a switch on his back that leads him to self-destruct. The gold robot piles the remains of the chrome robot and continues on his trek. Eventually, he stops, drops to his knees, and attempts to activate his own self-destruct mechanism, but is unable to reach it. He removes his helmet, revealing his motherboard face, and smashes it into pieces. He uses one of the shards to burn himself with the reflection of the sun, and he sets himself ablaze. However, he's unable to perish and walks off into the darkness of the desert, still on fire.
Okay, it's got a little kick.
But this is such an art house film and is so avant-garde that this film was always off-putting for me as a kid and is still off-putting for me as an adult. By the time we've reached 2026, you actually may recognize a bunch of memes from this film. Like this one, this one, this one, or this one. Now, this movie was boring and hard to understand as a attention deficit 10-year-old. I remember the time before Random Access Memories was announced. It was just kind of accepted that at this time this was their final project, and their music video for Primetime of Your Life was also their last music video. That it was just so off-putting, so avant-garde, and so horror inspired. It felt like the duo were trying to communicate something, going for their dreams and attaining fame, and how eventually fruitless their success was for their spirit. Like, obviously their wallets and their fame were completely fortified by their success. The video for Primetime of Your Life that I described earlier still gives me an eerie feeling as an adult. The visual aesthetic is dreamlike, staticky, and similarly to this film, it ends in tragedy. I remember reading on Wikipedia that this film was panned on release, and some folks walked out of the premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. As a fan of Daft Punk, this was like a hard thing for me to comprehend, considering that their last film was really good. Interstellar was released as a companion piece to Discovery, but Electroma wasn't necessarily a companion piece to Human after all, as the music of that album is not utilized at all in this film. While both are science fiction films about introspection and what it may mean to be seen as human, the vehicle of Interstellar is just much more palatable, considering that the lack of dialogue in the film is swapped for the entirety of the Discovery album. Electroma, for 70% of its runtime, is deafening silence, broken up with bits of ambient noise, characters touching or maneuvering things, and music from other artists that Daft Punk decided would fit in the film, like Billy Jack by Curtis Mayfield.
I'm so fucking scared right now!
Electroma pretty much forces you to have this uncomfortable silent perspective of the two robots. However, the goal of the two robots isn't as ambiguous as everything else in this film. We don't know what type of town this is, what world this is, what time period this is, how hostile the other denizens truly were. There's a bunch of ambiguousness to everything else in this film, but at the same time, what the robots, or at least the chrome robot and eventually the gold robot by the end of the film, want is completely clear, I feel like. The chrome robot seems to be more enthused and eventually disappointed by the failure of their, random weird human quest, whereas the gold robot is more willing to move forward with his head held high on multiple occasions. I don't know if this was indicative of the artist's actual feelings individually, or if both of the characters in the film are representative of both of the artists in real life. It's not the gold robot is Guy-Man or the silver robot is Tomas. It is Guy-Man and Tomas are represented in both of these robots, considering that the subject matter of a large portion of their music is that of what I feel like the themes are being, displayed and analyzed through the actions of these characters in this film. Visually, this film is actually really cool to look at. The slight film grain combined with the shots of amazing vistas and the overall costume designs and aesthetic of the robots in this film are all incredibly eerie and evoke like this weird dystopian liminal space kind of feeling. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if at this point this world with all of these denizens is like a backrooms level. Earlier I mentioned the extensively long walking sequence, and I'm not gonna lie, it's really the make or break aspect of this film for me. Now, just as a movie that I could sit down and rewatch,
Fuck no!
I literally cannot do that, as I tried on multiple occasions to really get through the walking sequence, and it's possible. I did it once, but I really have no desire to do it again. It just isn't engaging enough visually. It's not like I need like a Michael Bay Transformers-esque conclusion or sequence at every possible moment in a film to stay entertained or attentive. However, this walking sequence is very long. I would challenge anyone to truly say that they could sit through that and enjoy it. It just doesn't work for me, but it does work at the same time if the intention was to be uncomfortable, if the intention was to almost annoy the viewer, like I said, very avant-garde. And to be honest, the walking sequence's redeeming factor is how good majority of it looks. It's very effective, like I said. Honestly, it makes this movie perfect to play in the background, like of a party or at a retail store or something. It would eventually grab the attention of some people at the party for sure, just because of how strange this all is. Overall, as admirable of a venture as this film is, and how great some of the cinematography is, as well as the costume designs and the thematic elements that the duo are attempting to tackle, it's all very well done. As a piece of art, I would say it is the perfect kind of art to me. However, as a form of entertainment, this was a very difficult watch. The beginning drive in particular felt so drawn out and a bit repetitive. And even though the walking sequence is for sure my biggest negative, at least that sequence felt excruciating on purpose. The beginning drive just feels a bit amateurish and repetitive, as well as the fact that the visuals and the storytelling from the robot's body language is definitely something to hook onto. The beginning drive doesn't have any real substance or as much visual flair as any of the other sequences in the film, in my opinion. I would definitely recommend any fan of Daft Punk to watch this at some point, just to see which side of the fence you fall on, considering you are a Daft Punk fan. Are you willing to give them more of a chance? Or, you know, even if you're not a Daft Punk fan, you like a bit more weird art house French cinema inspired films, I guess you could say, definitely give this a shot. I would also recommend watching fan-made content where the album Human After All was utilized similarly to Discovery in Interstellar 555, where the album itself is synced up to specific sequences in this film, and maybe that would be a bit more of an easier watch. If you're a fan of Daft Punk, let me know in the comments what's your favorite Daft Punk song. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much. What's your favorite Daft Punk song? Do you like this movie more than Interstellar 5555? And if you do, please let me know why in the comment section down below. Give me a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye bye.